This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to Postcards from the Edge. I'm your host, Amy Nelson, and with me this week is Sarah Buck. Sarah, thank you for coming on Postcards. Now, this is your first time on this show, so why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
I am from Oregon, and I do a bit of writing online for the website Talk Film Society, and of course, I have been a guest on several podcasts at this point, especially ones having to do with Discovery. On Trek FM. So, and just kind of all around writing and geeking out about stuff.
Yes. Well, we are just so glad you're here. You were on with Mike, with The Edge, and you did a commentary.
Yes.
With that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was fun.
Great. Yeah. Well, today we are going to discuss the fan response to episode 5, Choose Your Pain. Now, if you would like to participate and share your response, please post your comments on the Babel Conference. That's our listeners group on Facebook, and you can type Babel, Babel, into the search field, and it will come right up. So, overall thoughts, Sarah, what did you think about this episode?
I thought it was a really cool, intense episode. I think they really got a lot of feelings into it. I think it kind of opened up Michael some more to a side we hadn't quite gotten to see of her. The kind of passion for her anthropology side, and definitely gave us a better look into Saru, and of course Mudd was in it, which was a lot of fun. It was fantastic. So just kind of a lot of intensity, a lot of feelings, and we got to see Rainn Wilson for the first time as Mudd, so that was great.
Yeah, I seen this episode, was just so excited, and like you said, the way that the characters are unfolding is so interesting, because I was one that didn't really care for Stamets, but now after this episode, really enjoying his character. And
I love him.
Yeah, he's becoming true to who I think that he is. And I was questioning, I didn't quite get to know him. I thought he was a bit of a jerk, but by the end, sacrificing himself, for the captain was really quite amazing. And Saru, I think he's the questionable one, because I'm wondering where is his leadership style. He's very self-doubting, and when he did that whole rundown of who are the most successful captains, and then seeing that list was amazing.
Yeah, that was a fun touch. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so he's now sort of, I'm questioning him, and also with Lorca getting his backstory and what he did for his last crew, I thought was very good. And then,
or 2,
Yes.
That's the debate.
Yeah, that's true. And, and then how I really enjoyed, because we see that so much in Star Trek, like the captain or, anyone, and they come up with a plan, but they don't tell the listeners. And then all of a sudden they're beating up the Klingons and they're escaping. And you're like, oh, that was so great. I love that part. So
that was a good one. I liked that too.
Yeah. So, well, let's get to what the listeners had to say. So Tim Robertson, holy crap, that was everything I wanted. Yes, yes, yes. I see you in the mirror, Stamets. This episode had it all. I cried.
Yeah, totally. I cried too. I thought the moment between the Doctor and Stamets was a really great moment. And I think they really celebrated the first time that they were able to show a gay couple on Star Trek. So it was a really sweet moment. I think it's super well done.
Yeah.
So the next one comes from Christopher Lutz. It's clear everyone on the cast and crew are becoming more comfortable with the series. Everything just felt smoother and more natural. I'm still a little iffy on the Spore Drive concept, but I like how they are slowly revealing its secrets each week. So Spore Drive, revealing its secrets. Yeah.
Yeah. Bill Sweet says, that made me so happy. But seriously, anyone saying this isn't Star Trek at this point, I can't even. It's hitting its stride, and it's hitting all the right points of at least the Star Trek I grew up loving. Messages of human decency and understanding mixed with solid adventure. And even with the Wrath of Khan nod, ship out of danger. And IDIC finally including gay people.
Yay. Yeah, I really agree with that thought of like, this is definitely Star Trek,
Yeah, there's been a lot of people that are like, oh, this isn't Star Trek, but I think this episode really solidified it.
Yeah. If anything's not Star Trek, it's Enterprise, right? But
Oh!
Ooh, sorry,
well.
couldn't help it.
Sarah's made her point. Well, Jason Moe says, this episode felt the most like a typical great Trek episode. I loved the more self-contained story with the Discovery crew stepping up and doing heroic, self-sacrificing things, not solely for the sake of the war, and starting to work together. A sign of great things to come for the crew, I think. P.S. That list of accomplished Starfleet captains was glorious. Hope to see Burnham's name alongside them one day.
That's interesting. I don't know if Burnham's ever going to get to be a captain at this point.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
And then we had Tony Salazar. This show just keeps getting better and better. Jackson Bredehoft, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. I thought it was great, getting better and better every episode.
Yes, I definitely agree. Just every episode, it is just more intense, getting the development of the characters. So very excited to have it keep on going. I hope it keeps on going for many, many seasons.
Me too. I really hope so, because it's great so far.
Well, there was quite a bit of discussion about our one Harry Mudd. And Christopher Query says, will the real Harry Mudd please stand up? In case you didn't know, in TOS, Mudd was the only foil of Kirk to show up twice. Sure, Kirk was up against Klingons and Romulans on multiple occasions, but never the same Klingons and Romulans. I didn't have much of a problem with Mudd. The problem I did have is that Mudd is supposed to be in his mid-20s. Rainn Wilson is a fine actor, but he is over 50. He's supposed to be the Mudd, if you're wondering. Not his father, and not someone else such as Leo Walsh pretending to be Mudd. I did like how his bug turned out to be a bug, literally.
I don't know if... I'm not a fan of getting into the whole, age thing. Because I don't think Rainn Wilson looks over 50. They definitely dressed him in a way where he could be at any age, and as we know, Mudd is quite a robust man in the original series. So, I can definitely see, this Rainn Wilson Mudd, putting on a couple dozen pounds, and becoming the Mudd of the original series, Kirk's.
Yeah, and I think also with Mudd, like, he's been on this ship being tortured-ish, you know, because he keeps choosing the other people to, you know, choose your pain. But, I mean, so he is beat up, and that is going to obviously aid you.
Yeah.
Because of your circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of, and you kind of get the feeling that this character is kind of like lives on the rough a lot, you know? So I don't like nitpicking like, oh, this person looks too old or too young for a certain role, because ultimately it's really the quality of the performance, and I think he nailed it.
Yes, I really enjoyed it too. I didn't watch too much of The Office, and so, you know, seeing Rainn Wilson was just completely fine for me. I didn't recognize him, so that was good, and his acting was great. I did not even see any part of The Office. It was really good.
Yeah. And I didn't watch a lot of The Office either, so I'm mostly familiar with him from like his film stuff and his other television, and you know, he always brings something really interesting and quirky or threatening to the part, so I think he's just such a great fit for it.
Well, Christopher Baca says Lorca made a smart move leaving Mudd behind. Sisko would have done something like that. Picard would still be in the cell. I don't know about that, Chris. Kirk would have escaped and reluctantly taken Mudd. The hand-to-hand was totally TOS with the double fist Kirk fu. So another largely talked about topic was the F-bomb on the episode. So Brandon Cole says, I have mixed feelings about this episode. I like the tardigrade being released. I didn't like the cussing, but what am I going to do about it?
I was surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, swearing in Star Trek. So it was kind of one of those like, what is going on? But I had that same reaction to the Cronenberg corpses in episode 2. So, you know, like they're going for a different feeling Trek in this, and I'm like, hey, if we're gonna go that way, why adhere to certain rules of a mature rating but not others? But again, that's me. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's interesting.
Christopher Lutt says, not sure how I feel about the mature language. It's too soon to say if it is a detriment to the series.
And Suman Dwan had pretty much my reaction. Whoa, they dropped the F-bomb on Star Trek. This show is definitely boldly going where no Trek has gone before.
It was very interesting in that thread. Tony Salazar posted a picture from Star Trek 4, the one where, you know, the well one. That's the voyage home, right?
Yeah.
And where they're on the bus and the guy with the loud boombox flips off Kirk because he asked him to turn down the music. Well, there you go. There's your swearing in sign, I guess.
Yes. Yep. Means the same thing. I thought it was really cute, though, because Tilly is one of my favorite characters, and that was a really adorable moment. So...
Well, Mike Morrison says, I'm loving this new Trek, but I'm admittedly sad for the parents who grew up watching current Star Trek with their parents and was looking forward to sharing this one with their own next generation. I know many who will now have to reconsider after the profanity was dropped in the latest episode. I'm sure that opinion might draw some criticism from the group, but I know it was too adult for my taste.
I have I guess, like, my version of parenting is probably not traditional, but you know, I would have no problem showing it to my daughter because she's really responsible as far as like knowing what words aren't okay to repeat at school. So and then Mark Boder says, like most here, I was surprised by the F-bombs. It didn't offend me personally, but I did wonder if it was quote-unquote true to Trek. After giving it some thought, I decided that if the great bird himself, Gene Roddenberry, was still alive producing this Trek, he'd probably be trying to push that envelope himself, and using it in a humorous context helps too. I think that's a good point.
It is. And yeah, bringing it more humorous where it's not meant as derogative and, an insult, but just more the lighthearted. It was interesting because I saw the episode and then reading through the comments, I'm like, oh, did someone swear? I didn't even. And then I remembered it because it wasn't even on my radar at that point. But
yeah. And then the other guy in the Klingon prison with them actually says the S word before Tilly ever says the F word. Yeah. So like that was my first one, was like swearing in Star Trek. What? So yeah. So they were like, they've done a lot of gore up till now, and this one they're like, hey, we're also doing swearing.
Right. Well, another topic that left everyone hanging on the edge of their seats was the very last scene, and the Stamets and the doctor brushing their teeth, and then they walk away, and their Stamets is still in the mirror. So Chris Query says a mysterious ending that will probably lead to a mirror episode.
Maybe. And Chris Hill says, I loved it. Like the others before, definitely getting better each episode. I can't wait to see if their foreshadowing leads to us actually seeing the mirror universe.
Yeah. And Liam Smart says, I thought this was the best episode character-wise so far, and the ending left me screaming, what? At the TV and rewinding it a couple of times. I'm not going to be playing on theories from now on. I think the writers are intentionally putting things in to make extreme fans run down the Section 31 or other fan favorites, so the mirror ending could be another one of those. Not ready to scream Mirror Universe just yet. So, are you screaming Mirror Universe because of it?
I am also kind of those ones is like, maybe, because I did like, nudge my husband and I was like, oh, Mirror Universe, but at the same time, we do know that he was plugged into this like universal network. So I don't know because so far they've really been doing a lot of recall to what's happened previously in this show, and so maybe it has to do with that network that him and the tardigrades are plugged into. Maybe that has something to do with the mirror universe. So it's really just exciting and interesting to me. I'm like, ooh, where are they going with it? So.
Yeah, I was, just reeling after that last scene going, oh my gosh, what if these first episodes was all the mirror universe?
Oh my gosh.
And we're going to get a restart.
That would be crazy. Like they just keep every few episodes restarting. That would be insane. Yeah. No, because there's so many possibilities. It's interesting. It was very haunting too. Like
yes.
Mirror Stamets is creepy.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, I was like, oh. So.
Well, this episode, we were introduced to a new character, Ash Tyler, and Rob Dickinson says, I'm interested to find out if that easy escape from the prison ship was for a purpose. Maybe the newest crew member is actually a Klingon spy. Wait a minute, was that an easy escape? I didn't know if that was easy or not.
I think it was a pretty tough escape. It was 7 months of torture. I mean, it's within the realm of possibility. He does, this Ash Tyler character is a little bit like, I'm like, I see him fulfilling a kind of Landry type role.
Yes, there's some comments about that. Prescott Harden says the running theory is that the new crew member is Voke himself. And I've heard that, and I'm sort of along those lines. I'm going to go down that rabbit hole and say it's Voke, and hopefully we'll get that reveal.
Yeah, Bill Sweet says, well, nothing that contradicts that theory that the new guy, the prisoner of war's Voke, post-smooth head virus, and some moments that would fit nicely with it being Vogue or at least some other Klingon spy. So, hey, they seem to really be going into Trek lore and pulling out some new interesting storylines with this series, so who knows?
Yeah, there were a couple of comments that, well, if that is Vogue, well, Christopher Baca and Tim Robertson says, well, hope that Tribble is still around, right? And Emma Guild was like, oh, that never occurred to me. So you get a lot of things when you're reading through these comments. But she continues, says, but it would fit perfectly. I didn't trust floppy-haired Starfleet dude. Now that's funny.
That floppy-haired Starfleet dude. Yeah, he was definitely, you know, someone who you would guess probably has some loose ideas of what duty and honor are for surviving torture for 7 months. So he'll be an interesting addition. Jason Moe, 99% sure that the Vogue equals Tyler theory is correct now. Way too many lines that seem like sly confirmations.
Yeah. Well, and we are taking Tyler's word that he was on there for 7 months.
That's true.
Because it could be Vogue, just that's his backstory, you know, because we know he had to go to the matriarchs and who knows what happened there. So he could just have that story. Oh, yeah, I've been here for 7 months when he just really got there. So Dan McWilliams says, I'm not sure about this theory. My personal feelings, my personal feeling is it's some actual human who got it on with the Lady Klingon and survived that way. But it is interesting that they showed the ending of the Vogue and Tyrell scene as part of the Last Time on Discovery montage with no continuation of it. So he's sort of reading some things into that.
And Gail Stoltz says, I wonder why Laurel was saying to Tyler, why would you want to leave me if he was really Vogue? And they planned his quote-unquote escape to Starfleet in the first place. I don't know if that was Laurel. I thought that was a different Klingon woman.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Laurel.
We didn't ever hear that it was, so...
They looked very different to me. Like, they looked like two different people, so I really don't think that was Laurel. I don't know why she would be on a completely different ship that's been operating since the beginning of this conflict with them. I did point out to my husband that I really love this kind of red-tipped, ruby-encrusted armor that we've seen on 2 of the female Klingons so far. And I wonder if that is an indication, if that's a way that, you know, from a certain house that they wear that specific armor, or if that's like something that some Klingon women like to do to denote their, you know, gender and sexiness maybe. So yeah, I thought that was cool, but I'm pretty sure that was not Laurel.
Okay. And Nicholas Collinson says, I know we haven't seen much of him yet, but I suspect that Ash Tyler will become the new security officer, and I really like that. Like we were talking about. Exactly. I like that in 2017, they would have a man of Arabic descent. I believe Shazad Latif is Pakistani-British as a security officer. I feel like it's very similar move to having Chekhov, a Russian, on the bridge in the middle of the Cold War. So, yeah, we definitely need a replacement for Landry. So, and if the captain trusts him.
Yeah. Well, and they seem to be at least somewhat cut of the same cloth. They seem to have some kind of respect for one another to be able to kind of feel each other out at the beginning there. So that'll be interesting to see. And then Andrew Phillip said, also getting the feeling that the guy that Lorca rescued off Klingon prison ship is not what he seems. The conversation with the Klingon captain makes me think he's a Klingon spy. So
yeah,
a lot of people not liking Mr. Tyler.
Definitely have some things to flesh out with this new character for sure. So another, again, just great topic that came up from this episode is our IDIC. And Allison Ricadio, I'm sorry if I mispronounce any names. You're always welcome to let me know, message me and say, hey, you pronounced my name wrong. So please do that. So anyways, Allison says, I always loved Star Trek because it represented diversity way before any other TV show would even dare. The original crew was inspirational to millions. Uhura and Sulu represented Blacks and Asians in mainstream entertainment, and it was revolutionary. They became icons. But I've never felt like I was fully represented in Star Trek, that there were no gay characters until the very last scene of today's episode of Star Trek Discovery. The scene features a gay couple discussing their day as they brush their teeth. As little as that means to most people, that scene, despite how subtle it was and how mundane was the task that they performed, made me proud of Star Trek for once again being revolutionary and embracing diversity through representation. I know there have been episodes that tackled LGBT issues before, but never were LGBT people ever represented in such a big way. I can finally say I exist in Star Trek. And this, more than anything that has happened in 50 years of Trek, has solidified my faith in Gene Roddenberry's idealism. Allison, that was very well put, and I could not agree more. It's you, yes. I feel you and I hear you.
Yeah, and I think it did mean a lot to a lot of people, because I have also had friends expressing that same sentiment, like I know that like many of my friends, broke down at that scene just out of happiness. And so I'm really happy that they did that. So, and Matthew Baker says, as a gay man, seeing Stamets and Culber together on Star Trek means more than I can say. To paraphrase a favorite cadet of mine, this is so freaking awesome.
So one thing, talking about the openly gay character, because there was a lot of discussion with the movie Beyond, where they're coming off the ship. Yeah. And, putting his arm and walking off together. And there was a lot of discussions like, that was just an everyday, I'm glad to see you. We made it back to Starbase. Let's go, but it wasn't quite strong enough. Well, I don't know, because you heard people saying, well, that wasn't a gay, that could have been like his brother or anything. So then it was getting criticism because it wasn't strong enough gay. So then that wasn't gay. And then there was like, oh my gosh, I recognize that is a gay moment and I feel represented because of that. So I think there's no doubt.
Right.
Where I think there was maybe some question in 2009, even though I didn't feel that way. I took it that it was, a gay couple with their daughter and, but that's not everyone read it that way.
Yeah, I think it was also tough because a lot of people didn't want that established character, Sulu, to be, just, oh, well, here's a character and we'll go back and we're going to make him gay, so where in previously he had been written as a straight character. So I think that was, I know a lot of people had reservations about that. They're like, yeah, but he wasn't. You guys are just kind of doing that to appease people. And this being a brand new character, two brand new characters who are openly gay, that makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah, that's, more clear, more direct. Yeah.
Exactly. True.
Emma Guild says, I got to watch the first openly gay characters on Star Trek talk about how they love one another while cuddling with my girlfriend on the couch. Maybe 2017 isn't all bad.
Aw.
I know.
That's so sweet. Oh, and then Janessa. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry, Janessa. Sidara?
Girl, all that sounded great.
I tried. Also, as someone on the autism spectrum, I appreciate Tilly's socially inappropriate outburst and find it appropriate. Her behavior is very much in line with someone who is also ASD. Yeah, and that's something that I've kind of felt she does maybe represent someone with like that non-typical, brain function wiring, like who represents an atypical human being, and I've really enjoyed that as well. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, we've had a couple of discussions on the edge and, talking about this autistic spectrum. And I think that Tilly does a great job in representing that. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, she's very likable, very, like, there've been a lot of shows lately that are trying to like tackle autism head on that I don't think do a very good job of it. So this is a real like relief and to see.
Well, as part of the enjoyment of the show, we don't always read all the positives. I always have a little segment for the negatives. However, ... some of our negative Nellies, Liam, Joey, not going to name names. Well, okay, I just did. But I wanted to read their comments because they generally have had a lot of questions and have voiced concern about Discovery. So Liam Kerrigan says, okay, I've not been slow to voice my displeasure at Discovery thus far. That's true. I've read your comments on Postcards and I'm getting to know you, Liam. But credit where it's due. This was a big improvement and my favorite episode thus far. They did something I didn't think possible. They humanized Lorca and actually made me root for him a little. The subplots in the episode, Saru's angst over whether he'll cut it as a captain, the saving of the tardigrade, it all felt much more in tune with the Star Trek I know and love. I'm also really happy that all my LGBT friends now have a main character they can directly relate to as well. My only issue was the unnecessary F-bomb. Star Trek has gone 50 years largely without the use of profanity. I'm sad that's no longer the case. Overall, though, great episode, and for once, I'm looking forward to next week. Well, Liam, it's about time. I'm so glad that you enjoyed the episode.
That's a big step for someone who's a hater, Good job, dude.
Well, we won't say he's a hater. He's just had questions.
I'm just being saucy.
Yes. So Joey Slawinski says, this was the most Star Trekkish episode of the series for me so far. I have been so down about the episode so far. Oh, we know, Joey. And though I just love giving our listeners a hard time. And though there are things that I still don't like about the series, I actually smiled a couple of times through this episode. If we get more episodes like this, I'll be happier about the series.
I love that these guys are really enjoying an episode that was arguably the most touchy-feely episode of the series thus far.
Interesting comment.
I know, because like so often, the people you see a lot of different series, people start nitpicking, especially when something gets maybe a little bit cheesy and emotional. They'll be like, oh my gosh, the science was bad, the this, the that, I hated it. But, these guys were waiting for some snuggle moments, I think. That's all they needed. They needed to snuggle a tardigrade and snuggle a cute gay couple. That's all.
Yes, I love it. All right. Well, let's get to our final thoughts. Ray Leopard says, a very good chapter in the ongoing tale of Star Trek Discovery. We are introduced to Ash Tyler. Is he just a prisoner of war returning to the fight? People are more complicated than that on this show, so there must be more to him. We also learn more about what drives Lorca. We really have to get the full tragic story of what happened during his last command. The explosive relationship between Michael and Saru may be developing into a friendship. Harry Mudd seems to be Harry Mudd, a bit more sinister, but still Mudd. and Ripper goes free. Hope we see more of the tardigrade. This is great Trek. Nobody can convince me otherwise.
I'm just like, one question on that one would be like, what is not sinister about sex trafficking? That is one of the things that Mudd does later on. And I just want to know what's like more sinister about him now than later.
Right?
But that might just be me, but I feel like he gets worse from here on out.
Well, and when you've got to survive. You do what you got to do to survive. So, yeah, is it sinister or is it just survival mode?
Right. And I think he may be talking more about like the feel of the acting, which I can see that. But to me, like the original series Mudd is like, he's very jovial, but he's selling women into slavery. So, like, ooh.
So one thing about that, like, I wondered how Lorca knew that it was Mudd, because when he was taken by the Klingons to torture, there was so funny on the thread. There are 4 lights, when they open his eyes. You guys crack me up.
That's a good episode. Good episode.
I know. So, but when he was hearing the same words that he was, telling Tyler and Mudd, that why did he jump that it was Harry Mudd? Because my first jump was, this Ash Tyler dude, he's, telling secrets.
Yeah.
So I that was a twist for me. So I'm gonna see really who this Ash Tyler is, and maybe Mudd, it was true. The bug was the bug. So,
well, in my opinion, Lorca still seems to me, as I expressed earlier in commentary, that Lorca's like the Goebbels of Starfleet. Like he's like, I am always very wary of characters who are like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to win a war, and especially with an entire science vessel at his fingers, like they mentioned eugenics in this episode, and
yes,
I don't think that Lorca's above that. He's he blew up an entire crew, and he says he didn't want them to die humiliating deaths, but who makes that decision for an entire crew of people?
Obviously he does.
Right.
And so that's the question that we are being posed with. Yeah. Well, I thought this was so interesting. Patrick Carlin says, while he was watching, he was having some fortune cookies during the episode. Very apropos. And the first one I opened had a very relevant message to what we've seen so far. It said on the fortune, "It is easier to resist at the beginning than at the end." I thought, that's so great. Have a fortune cookie.
Yes.
And
awesome.
One other comment, Mike Morrison, there was a lot of talk about the D7 ship, right? I am sort of clueless, but I will read what Mike says. D is the 4th letter of the alphabet, so D7 equals 47.
Got some numerology going on there. That is some like real engaging in the story. I like it.
I know, isn't that great? There's
great.
Always going to be some kind of 47 in there.
Yes.
So, Sarah, how do you feel that the fans responded to this episode?
I think it is so interesting. I think they responded like champs, because they're diving into Star Trek lore, which that's why I love the like Trek fan community so much, because there's so much to talk about. Like, we're all really obsessive about it. We watch it and rewatch it, and we know all this stuff. And so, like, pulling in those little threads and being like, is this it? But at the same time, the fans of Discovery seem to all be really excited about the new developments, which is a lot of fun too. You never want to get into one of those, groups where they're sticking their heels in and not wanting to go anywhere except for where they've seen. So it's an exciting community and an exciting reaction. And, they showed me some stuff that I hadn't thought of before. Like, they were like, oh, what about this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what about that? So way to go, guys.
Yeah, the fans are so great. So I didn't get to see the episode until really late last night, well, Sunday night. But I was always checking on the posts, to make sure people were talking. And oh my goodness, it wasn't even an hour after, or I'm sorry, it wasn't even 24 hours and we had over 100 comments. And I was like, oh my goodness, this episode is blowing up.
Yeah.
So
it was really cool. Excited. Like I said, excited. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. There's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah. So I think, and I scrolled through everything. I didn't see any negatives. Even my negative listeners turned around this episode. So I think definitely people are coming around and seeing the beautiful nature of this new show and recognizing it as Star Trek, which is just very exciting.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I have mentioned previously in my postcards that I have a student that is watching. And so every Monday she'll come up, Miss Nelson, did you watch it? And so I saw her in the hall. I was like, did you see the episode? It's so amazing. And she's like, no, I got in trouble, so I am grounded from TV.
Oh, heartbreak.
I know. She has to give up 3 weeks.
Oh,
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
That is torture. Parents, don't do that to your kids.
What did she do?
I can't even imagine what she could have done to deserve that kind of, that's cruel and unusual torture.
I mean, you can make an exception for Star Trek, right?
I know.
No TV except Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, man. I am so sorry.
I think I need to have a parent conference.
Sorry. Yeah. Be like, so, I hear you've been depriving her of Star Trek.
Yes. That is just not going to work.
I have to talk to her about this.
Yeah. So that, I guess, is good punishment if she deserves it.
I know. I'm like, whoa, girl, you gotta not do that again.
Well, maybe it was her grade in math class. Ooh. So.
Oh.
All right. Well, be sure to check out our Discovery coverage throughout the week. And boy, do we have a lineup for you. We start live from the Edge that airs on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern. And this is where you get to watch Bruce and Brandy and ask questions live. Then it will be released as a podcast on Tuesday mornings. Have you had a chance to catch that at all?
Yeah, I was on it.
That's right.
A few weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago, and it was a blast. Know, it's really fun to actually get the questions and stuff live. So it's a really fun show. I highly recommend watching it live and pestering them.
Yeah, they're different people.
They're good people.
Yeah, it's a different experience than just listening to a podcast. So it's really fun. Well, our commentaries will be available as tracks from the Edge on Wednesday, and that's with wonderful Mike Schindler. And
Mm-hmm.
We, of course, discuss your feedback on Postcards from the Edge, and that's released on Thursdays. And, of course, you'll catch a full analysis on the Edge main show that drops on Friday. And one of my new favorites is Notes from the Edge that comes out on Saturday, and this links between Discovery and the broader franchise. And Chris, our founder, Chris Jones, does a great job in making those connections. I feel 10 times smarter after listening to those episodes. So
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you will find all of these in the main feed for The Edge and in the Trek FM master feed. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Discovery. Of course, the best place to do that is in the Babel Conference, and we talked about that at the beginning of the show. You can also find us on Twitter at TrekFM or send us email using the contact form on our website at trek.fm/contact. So go there and select choose to send to a show and then choose the Edge. I love getting emails and would love to read them on the Postcard Show, so you can do that as well. So, Sarah, where can people find you on the interwebs to talk about Discovery and everything else geeky?
Oh, yes. Please find me on Twitter. My handle is at IAMSARAHBUCK. So I am Sarah Buck. If you want to look at pictures of my kid and the food that I eat mostly on Instagram, I am at Nerd Fancy, like cat fancy, but for nerds. And if you want to read any of my film writing, that is on talkfilmsociety.com.
Well, if you want to find me, I'm here on the network. I co-host Earl Grey with Richard Marquez and Justin Ozer. And I also am on the Edge. On Twitter, you can find me at Miss Amy Nelson. But my favorite place is the Babel Conference. That's where I love reading all of your messages and your posts. And I learn so much and I get new questions. I'm like, like we said, I didn't think about that.
Right.
That D7, I'm telling you. So we'd also like to thank our associate producers, Norm Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, and Shoaib Mirza. Thank you so much for supporting The Edge. And if you'd like to help us keep all of our shows going and even become an associate producer, visit patreon.com/trekfm for all the details. Well, Sarah, thank you again so much for coming on the show. It was just a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a blast.
And hopefully we'll see you around more on Trek FM.
Oh, absolutely.
Great. So join us next week for another episode of Postcards from the Edge. Hailing frequencies open.